I typically log in approximately 10 minutes before the scheduled class time, and I have some background music playing. I have created a playlist for the course on Spotify, and I made public so students can also add songs and I think create a nice environment, a community that set the tones for the sessions.
I just gave a talk to junior faculties about grant writing. And this year I decided all the examples going to be about dating. So every example I'm going to give about what makes grant writing effective, I'm going to bring an example in from dating. So, and some silly stuff, just it doesn't really matter. Sometimes the analogy is really effective, but sometimes it just breaks up dry materials, and then you just keep the room with you.
So this semester, for example, I taught a 1L class. And so this would have been their first semester in law school, their first time meeting each other. And the way that 1L sections are set up, they take the same classes with the same people for the entire year. And in that time, they build connections that will last well beyond the 3 years that they're at the law school. So I was acutely aware that I needed to be intentional in helping them to build that sense of camaraderie within their section that would normally happen organically if the classes were meeting in person. So I used an icebreaker discussion board. So we had one discussion board that was at the start of the semester, and I asked them a couple of different questions. I gave them the opportunity to post a video. So it didn't have to be text-based. They could post a video. If they wanted to, they could post a picture of themselves or someone or something that they love, just so that they're starting to create those connections with each other, and they're reading about each other and seeing where their common points are. And then I did an icebreaker during our first synchronous learning session. So our class is 2 hours long, and we took probably the first 40 minutes. So that's 40 minutes that could have been considered a loss, but it wasn't, because we played a game. And, they really started they were just chatting with each other, talking to each other, getting to know each other's faces and each other's little quirks. And so I feel like that was really important. And then throughout the semester, I used the breakout rooms. I would create group practice exercises. Again, 2 hours sitting on a Zoom session, just listening to me talk. No bueno. So I would create these group practice exercises and then send them into their breakout rooms and give them enough time to sort of settle in with each other, talk with each other, and do those projects, those exercises together so that they could connect and collaborate.
The students loved the breakout sessions because they were able to meet in smaller groups, get to know each other. That's one of the big things. I went to the School of Social Work 40 plus years ago, and there are people who were my study partners back then who I'm still friends with today. So the connections that we make, the networks that we create in college and grad school live with us for the rest of our lives. That's really hard to do when you're just a little chicklet on a screen. They don't have an opportunity to. So using breakout sessions gave them that sort of opportunity to get to know each other, work a little bit together. I did lots of group work. Sometime during the class, in addition to just breaking out for conversation, they had to work in their groups, and they used technology to do that. So that made it more interesting and better learning for them.
I use Voicethread. I think Voicethread is great for adding texture. It feels like texture to discussion boards. So it's not just text, because there are some students, they write and they love it. And there are others who just want to talk. And so I feel like the added layer of a Voicethread is that when I say to my students, you don't have to write your message. You can record a Voicethread and just put the link here. So I like to use it for that, for introductory videos. I love Voicethread for that.
I use a lot of the features on Zoom. I use the chat box, so I pose a question and I ask the students to enter the questions on the chat box. I use live polls. I use Google Slides. So I have them going to the breakout rooms, and I have a slide for each group so they can work on the slides, and then I share my screen and we discuss about the work they did.
We use a software called Mentimeter. That's kind of like a polling software. I mean, you have a polling option in Zoom or WebEx as well, but I don't find those really user-friendly for me and don't look that great. So I like those outside vendor options that can be integrated into a PowerPoint, a little friendlier, and it allows students to do it on their, or participants to do it on their cell phones while I'm talking. So that's another way to engage. And people really love that Mentimeter kind of slide stuff.
I love Blackboard blogs. So I am teaching a technology in the practice of law class, and lots of lawyers have blogs. It's the way that it's a way to build business. And so I want my students to get into the habit of thinking about how they communicate information. And so I'll be using the Blackboard blogs for them to write. They'll be required to do 2 or 3 blogs through the semester, and then their peers will be responding to the blogs.
I used polling a fair amount. Students really like that. My professional clients like that. Sometimes starting off a meeting to either get the temperature or to help set an agenda or get feedback in a way that's not happening ordinarily through dialogue. So the polling feature was really, really helpful. Using the chat room, not just as a way for sort of a sidebar conversation, but using the chat room as an actual vehicle for adding ideas, for posting information.
Poll Everywhere. I use Poll Everywhere sometimes to keep students engaged in the class. I'll ask them, sometimes I just ask them the random question because I just want to see if they're awake. Other times it'll be something that's based on the reading. I'll ask them a question based on the reading, and then I may not tell them the answer right away, but I may show them each other's responses and ask them to debate the pros and cons of their responses. So I'll use that. Sometimes I use MediaSite desktop recorder. It's great for creating videos and then easily embedding quizzes or questions into the videos. So I do like that, and it's easily integrated into Blackboard.
I've really enjoyed experimenting with screen recording. I have because I'd like to demonstrate in the video sort of live editing of a passage, or or feedback giving, like, oh, if we move the, like a principle that I cover in one of my classes is to use less, to use shorter sentences. So I might show my students a long sentence and then I kind of break it up and I write on it and how I would rephrase it. And it's kind of nice to see them how I'm writing things out literally. So I use my iPad and my iPad Pro and my Apple Pen for that, with the mirroring app on my laptop, so I can record my my iPad. It sounds a little complicated, but once you figure it out, it's really easy to use, and it produces really nice videos. And so so that's something that has been really a hallmark of my online teaching, is using that kind of technology.
Microsoft Forms. So I use Microsoft Forms for class takeaways. So at the end of class, I'll provide a link in the chat, and then they need to respond to that form, send that form back to me. It serves 2 purposes. One, I ask them a question about, like their top 3 takeaways for the day, things that they'd like to do different, or, that they think are great and they'd like to continue doing. But it also gives me, lets me take attendance without having to worry about taking attendance.
I tried to find other platforms that I can bring into the screen that would create a feeling as though we were working together in a more seamless way. So one of them is Trello. I don't know if you're familiar with Trello, or the folks who are watching this are familiar with Trello. A real easy program to learn how to use. Primarily was originally designed to do to-do lists for folks. And I just went into the back end of that and sort of recreated how it looked on the screen. And we used that for setting priorities for the class, for identifying topics that we wanted to work on together, for creating work groups and having them do action planning, and then kept that platform open to them all semester for them to be able to go in and rework the cards, sort of like Post-its, if you will, on a big wall. they're able to go in there and move them around and manipulate them within their own work group. So, you know, using tools like that, I found to be real helpful, and the students seem to have found real helpful too.